Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of video series dedicated to learning Microsoft Fabric. In the last video, we started discussion around warehouse service in Fabric. So we learned very basics of warehouse, creating warehouse, creating tables, querying tables. So today we are starting discussion around transformation and automation in warehouse. Specifically, we'll be exploring user-defined functions and stored procedures. We'll also take a look at orchestrations options of code living in warehouse. Join me to learn more. So there are a few common ways of storing and executing your queries in warehouse. So one of these options are views. So you can create any read query and store it in the database by assigning name. And you can refer to them from your interactive queries or other views. So you can have nested views. Another similar option is saved queries. Although saved queries are mostly useful for interactive query execution. Another type of stored queries is functions. In warehouse Transact SQL language, there are lots of built-in functions. But in addition, you can also create your own functions. So these are called user-defined functions. So user-defined functions are read-only, just like views. However, you can also include parameters. In other words, you can treat your functions as parameterized views. So functions can contain only single query. Another type of stored code is called stored procedures. So the stored procedures are much more flexible than the other code components we discussed here. So with stored procedures, you can include data manipulation queries, in addition read-only queries. And you can have more than one query within stored procedure. Like functions, you can include parameters. You can return certain values from stored procedures. Let's take a close look at functions and stored procedures. Okay, so let's see how we can create functions in warehouse. If you have worked with other flavors of SQL, you know that there are two main types of user-defined functions. So these are so-called scalar functions that can return a single value, and table-valued functions that can return a data set. So in this documentation, you can see both options. However, in warehouse, table-valued functions is the only option. So let me walk you through main component of this command. To create the function, you have to specify schema and the function name, and optionally you can provide list of parameters. And then you have a returns statement which specifies type of data to be returned. So because this is table valued function, this value needs to be always table. And finally, you can include your select statement within return clause. So let's see how this works on the example of a sample warehouse that we created last time. Let me navigate to SQL Server Management Studio, or SSMS in short, to continue the discussion. So SSMS is a great tool to query your warehouse as well as your lake houses. Make sure that you have selected necessary warehouse. So this is a sample warehouse that we created last time, and I expanded warehouse here. As you can see, it has few tables including geography, and my first command creates user-defined function to query this table. I will be sharing this script in the video description. Let me walk you through this script. So my first command creates fn geography function and provides GID parameter, and it returns data from geography table for a specified geography ID. So I already ran this command and created the function, so you can find all of your functions on the table valued function folder. Now I can query this function like this. So this will be the simplest way of querying functions. As you can see, this syntax is very similar to table querying syntax, except we are providing parameter here. Since user-defined functions behave like parameterized tables or views, they can be used as part of more complex queries. To do that, you can use cross-apply clause. So this is one example where I query the data from weather table, which in this case is considered the parent query, and then I attach my user-defined function using cross-apply clause, and I provide dynamic parameter to this function, which is coming from the parent table. So as you can see, my select part includes columns from the parent table as well as this child table or child user-defined function. So here's a sample output for these functions. So in this case, city and the state columns are supplied by FN geography function. One thing to notice is that create function statement will fail if you already have the function with the same name. And for that reason, you may want to include drop function command before creating the function. So the drop function syntax is very simple, so I have included one sample here. Now let's talk about stored procedures. Stored procedures creation command is similar to user-defined functions. So you have to use create procedure command followed by stored procedures name. And then you can optionally include parameters. Parameters can be input or output type parameters. Unless you specifically tell output, all the parameters will be assumed as input parameters. So what's different with output parameters is that you can actually pass the value from this stored procedure back to your parent process. And then stored procedure should include the main part, which is code part. The code part may include one or more queries, and they are not restricted to read-only queries. You can also include DML queries. So in this case, I have update query, which is updating one column, and then I'm using dynamic parameter coming from outside the stored procedure. Within stored procedure, you can change the values of your output parameters. So in this example, I am setting this parameter to -1, and then you can also optionally return values from the stored procedure. So I already created this stored procedure, and let me explain how you can use the stored procedure. You can use exec command to call the stored procedure and then provide list of parameters. So let me run this 3 command to call the stored procedure. So in this example, I passed this variable as output parameter, and it returned correct value. Now let's explore different ways of orchestrating the queries created for Warehouse. So to do that, I'm going to navigate to Microsoft Fabric, and it will select Data Factory as a service. From here, I can create a data pipeline using this button. So data pipelines are great, powerful tools. They allow you to move data as well as transform using different activities. So I already created a sample pipeline, which I'm going to demonstrate here. So there are a few activities that are suitable to call warehouse objects. So let me start by Get Metadata activity. So this activity allows you to get child information or metadata information from selected object. So I'm going to navigate to Settings tab to show you configuration of this activity. So I have selected my connection, which points to warehouse I already created. And then I can select the table. So in this case, I have selected geography table. And then you can specify type of metadata you want to receive. So, and you can do that using new button here. This will allow you to add one or more fields or metadata fields here. So I already added a structure field, which will return structure for geography table. However, you can also, if I expand this, you can also include some other metadata conditions here. Another useful activity is a lookup activity. So lookup activity can return actual data from selected tables or queries. So let me navigate to the settings tab and show its configuration. And in this case, you have a few options. You can either say, I want my table, entire table, or you can select your query and provide your query, which is of course more flexible. Alternatively, you can also use a stored procedure option to select your stored procedure. So in this case, I am using system views to bring list of all tables from my sample warehouse. So information schema is a system view, and under that I specified tables. So that should bring me list of all tables from this warehouse. Another useful activity is a script activity. Let me open the settings. With script activity, you can have easy query options, which will work like lookup activity. So you can provide your own query here, or you can just select non-query option and provide name of stored procedure. And selecting stored procedure option will allow you to run your actual transformations within your warehouse. Last activity on my list is a stored procedure activity. As the name suggests, this is an activity designed to call your stored procedures. So the configuration would be similar. So you have to specify your connection, and then you have to select your table. So if I expand here, I can see list of all my stored procedures. And in this case, I have selected stored procedures that we just discussed. And then you can use import button, which will bring list of all of your parameters automatically. And then you can specify your values within these boxes. So I already specified values for date ID, rate, and return code parameters. Let me save and run this pipeline. Okay, so let's examine the output of these activities. So let me first examine output from Get Metadata activity. So it should show me a list of all the columns alongside with the types. That this is the information that you could potentially use within dynamic pipelines to build some kind of iterative logic. Next is my stored procedure activity, and its output does not show much information. So output does not include data set, even though my stored procedure returns the data. That means that I cannot use output from the stored procedure within my data pipeline if I use stored procedure activity. In other words, I can still use this activity if my purpose is just to run transformations. My next activity is a lookup activity, and if I take a look at this output, I can see output for one of the tables, and as you can see, it's included on the first row node. And the reason for that, by default, lookup activity returns only first row. So if I select this activity again, you will notice a first row only checkbox. If I remove this checkbox, this will return whole data set. Finally, my script activity includes a data set with all table names information. The pipeline I created is very simple. With data pipeline, you can build multi-step complex pipelines and include dependency between different steps. If you want to learn more about this powerful tool, I have few videos in my channel. Please take a look. And once your pipeline is complete, there are a few ways to automate its run. You can either run it interactively, as I did it a few minutes ago. Alternatively, you can set this pipeline to run automatically without your interventions. And here you have a couple of options. So you can either use a schedule option and provide your frequency, time of the day, and so on and so forth. And the second option will be a trigger option, which is currently in preview. With this option, you can tie your pipeline run to certain events like files arriving to your blob storage. This concludes today's discussion. To summarize, we can use user-defined functions as a way to parameterize your queries. We can also use stored procedures to run your transformation within your warehouse. And finally, you can use data pipelines to orchestrate your transformations. I hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in future videos.